Action.
You gotta wait till we get the thumbs up.
Thumbs up. All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Friday, May 22nd, 2020. Don Martinez here as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I hope everyone's gearing up for a wonderful Memorial Day. We've got an action-packed show this morning for you folks. And I'm going to turn it first over to our Deputy Chief. Deputy?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. The numbers for today are Massachusetts, 90,084 cases, 6,148 deaths. In the U.S., 1,621,333 cases, 96,363 deaths, with 382,244 recovered.
Oh, great. Very good. Now I'd like to turn it over to Esther, our public health nurse.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday.
Good morning, Esther.
As of this morning, we have had 703 residents tested with a confirmed 128 cases, 29 active cases, 89 recovered, and 10 deaths. With that being said, one of those confirmed cases is thought to possibly be a false positive, so we're watching the repeat testing closely.
So I have to say.
So if you see the numbers go down, don't be surprised.
Okay. So I see the numbers have truly flattened out over the past week or so, which is good. And I really have to applaud this our Board of Health for taking early action in putting the masks on before the state. This is anecdotal. I have no specific statistical evidence, but I think it's really helped. It's also not only helped there, but it's helped overall awareness in the town. So when I go to different grocery stores, I think everything's being acted. I'm not saying everybody should calm down. Everybody should be safe, wash their hands. But at the same time, it's really nice to see a gradual decrease of the number of tests and the number of positives. So that's been happening, for the last couple of weeks. So with that, I want to bring on Bruce Wilson, our Board of Health, to speak to you folks.
Good morning, everybody. Interesting piece of news this morning. The sanitizer that everybody's carrying in your cars. You want to be cautious that if it's in a plastic bottle or a clear glass bottle, not to leave it in the hot sun or in the direct sunlight. It's a high alcohol content, and there was a small car fire in Wisconsin that the fire department had to respond to. Response done because the prismatic sun hit the bottle and caused it to overheat and explode. So if you're carrying that sanitizer, put it out of sight, put it in a glove compartment, or put it under a seat so it's not directly exposed into the sunlight.
Well, that's great news because I have a bottle that's sitting right in the sun. So
Yeah,
thanks for that piece of
be cautious because
information.
you don't, it's tough to replace your car in the COVID-19.
Yes.
I would not want to have to go shop for one.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, Bruce?
Numbers are good. Looking all right. Schools looking at a parade for their seniors. I reviewed the document there, as well as I believe Mark has seen it, and the police. So they're all geared up. That should be a good send off for them. Things are progressing. We've gone out to several restaurants with our inspection crew. Everything's looking good there. Mm-hmm. People are getting very creative, and I think we're going to see, once we get the green light to let the outdoor seating go, a lot of these places open and we can go and enjoy our favorite foods.
Oh, that's great. It's good to hear. I'm personally very excited for the senior parade. Next Friday is my daughter's a senior in high school. I'm pretty excited to see that send off. I think that the town, Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, and the school committee came together, I think, to put together a really nice send off for these seniors. There's notices going out to all the seniors about the social distancing, the organizing of their cars. So they're going to be receiving more information, and expect to hear some all-call announcements from the school in code red here from us too, just letting everybody know. The route's a pretty basic route. They're going to leave the high school. They're going to take a right onto Mechanic, go down to Maple, go down to Stallbrook, come out of Stallbrook, take a right onto 126 and take a left over there by Larry's, head down to past the Memorial Middle School, and then continue down and end at the Petro School. So really what they want to do is have all the students pass by the schools that they attended for the 12 years. I think it's a really nice send-off and they're going to be led by our police department. I'd like to get a fire truck in there too, if we
Yeah, I
could.
thought that'd be good. too.
That'd
I
be
was gonna
really
mention
nice.
that.
If we could get a fire truck and maybe put a social distance, maybe a few of the school administrators on the back of that fire truck, that would be kind of nice.
I think we can work on
You
that.
think we can work that out?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's have a conversation after this about that. Great, well, thank you. Dennis?
Maybe we can see if we can get Access Bellingham down there in a vehicle to record it.
Yeah.
See what-
That would be great. I remember back in 2014 when the girls softball team and the boys baseball team won the state championships on the same day. And Mr. Connor had organized a kind of a surprise parade, and the kids came back in the bus, and there was all kinds of stuff. And they ended up down at the baseball field there by DePietro at Tuttle and Trotter Field. So that was really nice. And that was just like, that just put together in about an hour. And that worked out really well, if you remember that. That was a pretty fun time in our town. So maybe we could do something along those lines. And somebody had videotaped it, and it was all over. So it'd be nice if we get cable into video, then we could stream it for the kids.
And we're looking at having Mr. Morano, school superintendent, in next Wednesday
Okay.
to update on all things school. So I'm sure
Okay,
he'll
great.
touch on the parade, he'll touch on what graduation activities are planned, virtual learning,
Good.
everything else. So any school issues, Mr. Morano will be touching on that next Wednesday.
Okay, great. So for those folks watching, it's going to, if you maybe want to find a place, a safe spot to sit down and, pull your lawn chair out, put your mask on.
Favorite student?
Yeah, and cheer on your students. I mean, there'll be places all along 126. There's St. Blaise Church parking lot. There's memorials. As long as you're safe and you're keeping your distance, I think it'd be a wonderful send-off to see the citizens of this town say congratulations to our students who have had a pretty difficult time this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, Dennis, do you have anything, any questions?
We do. We have a few questions for Esther. Esther, the first thing we had discussed previously was the new CDC guidance relative to the spread of the virus on surfaces. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So new guidance from the CDC has come out that says while the virus may stay on hard surfaces for a period of time, the risk of transmission is actually very little. So basically what they're saying is if you touch any surface that the virus may have been on, just make sure that you wash your hands really well before you touch your nose or your mouth. You don't necessarily have to vigorously wipe down any of your shopping bags or any of your, packaging that contains any food products. Just wash your hands really well before you touch your face.
Great. Thank you. I have a question from one of our viewers. When a person dies from COVID-19, how long does the virus live in the body?
So the virus can actually live in the body for at least a few hours. They're really not sure. What the CDC has said is that the virus can stay in the body for up to a few hours or possibly a few days. So they're really not sure. You have to remember the virus stays in the respiratory secretions. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it is contagious and infectious. It just means that the virus is there. And there really is no test right now to determine whether or not you could actually catch the virus because they don't know that it's actually alive. The precautions that need to be taken place at the funeral home are being taken place. I really wouldn't worry about it if you're going to a wake or a funeral or something of that nature. There are not going to be any respiratory secretions expelled by the dead body.
Great. Another question. I saw on the news today info coming out of South Korea stating that you cannot contract the virus a second time. What about the 13 sailors from the USS Roosevelt that have tested positive a second time after being cleared to return to work?
So you can actually test positive for the virus for an extended period of time. There's a known case where an individual had tested positive for, I believe, 82 days after they became infectious. That does not necessarily mean that the virus is shedding and actively shedding and that the person is contagious. What happens is the RNA from the virus attaches itself in your nasopharynx. And when you get the swab done, pieces of that virus come out and you will test positive. But again, that doesn't mean that you're contagious and infectious at that time. It just means that the RNA of the virus is still within your body.
Thank you.
Turn the volume up on the TV.
Any other
That
questions?
was it. That was all of our questions
Never
for today.
Bruce.
Okay. Dennis, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nope, I don't know if you wanted to touch on our visit from Wednesday or if you want to.
Sure. No, I'd like to, Dennis and I, along with Tim McCarty and Jim Kupfer, visited the Amazon facility earlier this week. We spent an hour with their operations manager and a gentleman responsible for all their truck routing. And I have to say, you know, being a resident of Maple Street, I had some concerns. But I will say, as a resident of Maple Street, I have noticed the trucks along Maple coming out are within the speed limit. And we asked a lot of questions about safety. We asked a number of questions, and I just want to, we're going to have a kind of a walkthrough later on. We're going to try to get Cable 8 down there and walk through so we can let the people know what this facility is all about. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. But they go to great lengths to ensure the safety of the drivers, safety of the car. They actually give, what I thought was impressive, a score similar to a FICO score to each of their drivers. And they're based upon the speed of the vehicle. In other words, they have governors in the vehicle that, one, don't allow them to go more than 70 miles an hour on the highway, but they also have in their system, their GPS system, speed monitoring. So they know exactly how fast these drivers are going. And they get knocked down. Their FICO scores, as we will call it, get knocked down based on that. If they get into the vehicle and they don't insert their seatbelt first and they turn the vehicle on, there's a ding on their score. If they're leaving their vehicle idling, when they leave the vehicle to a package, they get dinged. They get severely dinged. Because just imagine the amount of vehicles that Amazon has worldwide. And if they were to leave all those vehicles idling, what it would do to our environment. So they have to turn the vehicles off. Idling is a no-go. It's pretty impressive too. So there's a lot that goes around the safety of the drivers. There's a lot of additional training for the drivers. Again, if they get caught speeding, it's on their insurance, it's on their license. It's not a ding against Amazon, and they'll rotate those bad drivers out pretty quickly. You know, I don't know how many months ago, but their average score, if you think of it of a FICO, their average scores many months ago were about 650. They're now over 750. So imagine if you have a FICO score of 750, you got really good credit. So these guys have scores of 750 or higher. Those are really good safety records. I think Amazon's doing that, one, for all of us in the community, but also I think it helps them keep their insurance costs down. But that's their business. I felt as though they really are willing to work with the community. I mean, they want to be a good neighbor. This facility here in Bellingham is not like the one in Milford. This is what they call it, the next generation facility. And what that means is there's more precautions around safety. The vehicles, there's 90 of them right now. And beginning at 9:50 a.m., about 20 of those vehicles will leave every 20 minutes. So they're not clogging up intersections. They're not clogging up gas stations. They're either taking a right or taking a left out of the facility. They've also put into their GPS that they can't use High Street. Okay, for those folks that live on High Street, they can't use High Street unless there's a delivery on High Street. So we're not going to see, they can basically go into the mapping system, they're that advanced, and say, no High Street, folks, and they won't be using High Street, which is we're very happy to hear. So we were going to bring that up. They already took steps to eliminate that because they recognized themselves it wasn't a proper street. So they can do things along those lines. So I personally was very impressed. I believe they're going to be a really good neighbor. And if they're not a good neighbor, we have their direct numbers to give them a call. They also said to us that they are going to be using a lot of they put on training events for all their people. When we went in, there must have been 30 or 40 Dunkin' Donut bags and coffee. So they're buying lunches at McDonald's. So we encourage them by giving them a few more names of restaurants in our town. We asked them to please buy first in Bellingham. If they can't buy first in Bellingham, they will go outside of the town, but they're very much want to support Bellingham in many different ways. I don't want to take up too much of your time, folks. Dennis, is there anything that you want to say that's important to you that maybe I didn't mention?
I think the biggest thing is we've all heard a lot of negative stories about drivers that are speeding along because if they don't get their route done in a certain amount of time, they're going to get terminated.
Right.
We've heard those stories. We've heard stories out of Milford about clogging up intersections. it seems like as they build these facilities, they're trying to address the problems that they've had. That's the message that we received. And so far, so good as far as the movement. You've got a front row seat living on Maple Street, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting about the drivers aren't compensated by finishing their route in a certain time. The driver's scores come on safely delivering the package and then safely getting back in the vehicle driving. If their route is a 10-hour route and it's 10 hours and 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. Safety is the most important thing, and the safe delivery of a package is the most, because it's all about goodwill. And Amazon, they want you to continue to use Amazon services. And like Domino's, this isn't the Domino, get your pizza in 30 minutes or you get your money back. There's nothing along there in their metrics as a driver that says you need to get this package on this certain time. So I think when Dennis, you had asked that question, I think it was important, and they addressed it. I'm really pleased with them. Let's just hope they continue. What we'd like to do down the road, and they've agreed, is to allow us to go into the facility. They got to check with their PR and have Cable 8 go in there and provide a tour. So then we'll stream that on Cable 8. People can see what that facility is like when it's at capacity or when it's working. You know? So I don't have really anything else to add, but if there's, I will say to the residents, if you see an Amazon truck and they're backing up or they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, let us know and take down the number of the truck. Take down the big numbers. Take down the number and where you work, and it'll be our responsibility to reach out to them. They'll take it seriously. I'd like to make sure they do take it seriously. Okay. Anybody else?
And well, just to let everybody know that it's nice to know that they have safety precautions. When the building was constructed, safety was in mind for the townspeople also. It's a 300,000 square foot building. It was pre-planned by the building inspector, the fire department, myself. We had multiple inspections. There are high-tech sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems. The building inspector reviewed that. We finally did our final inspection just a couple weeks ago. Everything's fine. So when you drive by that building and you see a large building of that nature, it's safe for the townspeople. It's constructed so with all the safety precautions in mind. So it's not just the vehicle drivers and all that are safety conscious. It's also the building itself is built to be safe.
And I'd like to commend Deputy Chief too, because we do know that he's had all of his men there for training. So that building, all of his people know exactly how that building operates. They've been through it. But not only that, but sometimes we have to have, Franklin and Medway, in other words, help us, what's called mutual aid.
Correct.
And I believe you're working with those fire departments to get the proper training too.
They've already had their tours.
Have they already had
yes.
their training? So what towns? Medway and Franklin?
Medway, Hopedale, and Franklin, yes.
So those towns also, their firefighters have had training in that facility. So if we need to call on mutual aid towns, they're there and they're trained. I think that's outstanding. I don't know if that's normal procedure or not.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
These larger structures that are being put up in town, we're going a little bit above and beyond because of the size of the structure. So we'll need a little bit more mutual aid to come in and provide assistance if there is an incident there. So and we're also working with Amazon to develop a sort of a pre-plan for any kind of incident that would happen. So that's what we're at. That's what we're doing right now.
That's great. That speaks volumes too, what the Deputy Chief is doing. I don't know if any of you folks talk with other people in other towns, but I have to say I have friends in Medway and Milford and Franklin. In those towns, I'm not saying bad against those towns, but they're not doing what we're doing here in the town of Bellingham, keeping our residents informed. And we're doing it every day, and we're doing it 3 days a week now. I think it's really important that we continue this outreach for our town, giving them access as to what's going on, offering them the opportunities to ask us questions. It just isn't happening. And we're slowly opening up our town hall. Other towns aren't opening up their town halls. Are they being too conservative? Well, I don't know. We need to get out and start to live a little bit too. So I think we're really ahead of the curve compared to all of our surrounding towns. And this is just really a great place to live. So I want to thank the deputy and Dennis and all the staff members because they really have stepped it up. Without any experience, none of us have ever experienced a pandemic of this nature in 100 years. So I think it's important that we say thank you to our administration here in this town.
And Don, we're getting it done as a team. That's the best way to put it, because it's not it's definitely not one individual that's taking the lead on this. Everybody is stepping up. From I can't. Every single board and department head has contributed every single day to get us through this pandemic.
Yeah, I don't think there's I mean, Mark and I are in constant contact, Tim Arcadi, Esther, I mean, we're all on top of it.
Yeah.
Really, I don't think there's anything that one of us doesn't know that the other has. Let's share, you know?
Yeah, and I have to say, is there may be, I'm very thankful, there may be criticisms out there, and just think for a second, how can you possibly ever prepare for something like this? You can go through mock drills all day long, but until you're in the heat of it, until your hair stands up on the end of your arms, you really don't know how to respond. And I think our town, as a team, one, is physically and mentally prepared, and they're learning every day, and they're making adjustments to plans based upon what they're learning every single day. This whole thing has been fluid. So, hats off to the entire town and to the residents for taking it seriously.
Great.
That's it. I don't have anything else. Sorry, Larry, our town clerk. Sorry, Larry. He probably wants to get back to work and doesn't want to hear me talk to him.
Thank you. First thing I'd like to talk about is dog licenses, and it's coming close to the time for the deadline. We usually have a deadline of July 1st. And as people know, then late charges and fines begin to accrue. And the state so far has not given any directive not to do those things. So it is a state fine. So we will have to impose them upon people that are late with their dog licenses. And we're hoping that everyone will get them in by the deadline, which is July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 2020 dog license. It actually spans from January to December. So this is the mid part of the year. We right now have, and I'm grateful that we have 2/3 of them in, but we need to get that other third in, and it's really either a $15 or a $20 charge, depending on whether the animal is spayed or neutered or not. And it will save you a lot of money to get it in now. And I know a lot of people love to come in and do it, and they're unable to at this time, but it's very easy. Just mail in the information with a check, and we will mail the license back. So again, please get it in by June 30th so that you don't incur any late charges or fines. The other thing I wanted to update is the election. We've been getting early voting applications and absentee applications in. There are, on our website, there are applications available. You can just print them out and mail them and fill them out and mail them in to us. And we're actually going to be sending out the ballots. Some are going to go out today, and then the rest of them are going to go out next week. Again, you have until the night of the election to get those ballots in. We hope that you could get them in earlier. It just makes life easier for everybody. But if you send them in, you can mail them or you can deliver them to the drop box in front of the building. And then the other thing relative to the election is that we're going to be having a candidates forum on Thursday, May 28th at 10 a.m. at the same time as this meeting. It's actually going to take place at this meeting. And so far we have all the candidates for selectmen attending, which I'm very happy about.
What date is that again, Larry? I'm sorry.
It's May 28th at
Which
10
is
a.m. Thursday.
Thursday, so next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Great.
Okay. Again, there's information on the website if you're interested, and you can tune into the cable stations to watch it. If you have any questions that you'd like to send in ahead of time, if you would please send them to town_clerk@bellinghamma.org, and in the subject line put forum so we can sort of segregate the different inquiries that we're getting. And the very last thing I want to do is I'd like to talk a little bit about Memorial Day, because we're not going to have the usual, we are having some activities and so on, but I'm really hopeful that people don't lose sight of what Memorial Day is really about. It's nice, that wonderful when we have good weather. It's a 3-day weekend. Everybody's really charged up about that. In particular this year, we have had a cool and miserable spring, and we can get out a little bit and hopefully within the constraints that we have still have a nice weekend. But I just wanted to talk about the reason for the holiday, because we seem to lose a lot of that along the way as things get more commercialized and secularized and so on. But it's to really remember the people that have fought for this country and lost their lives. It's different from Veterans Day because it's not all Veterans Day. It's veterans that have lost their lives in battle. And they did that frequently, all the time actually, to save the freedoms and rights that we enjoy. And in particular this year, for me, it's a very sensitive thing because we see how quickly our freedoms and our rights can erode. In this case, it was from a virus that we're confined to our homes. We can't get our hair cut. We can't go places that we want to go. We can't go shopping we want to go. We can't go to restaurants and so on and so forth. All things that we've always taken for granted. And I think we hopefully will all join together. It doesn't matter because those people that fought in the foxholes and in the fields and so on all had different backgrounds, different religions, different party affiliations, and so on and so forth. But they all kind of came together for a common goal. And I hope everyone will come together and defeat this virus, not have it continue and say, oh my God, it's coming again or whatever. I hope people work to defeat it. And I know as individuals, we don't have much to say about that, but we can at least hope and pray for it. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is that we will defeat it in order that we regain and retain our freedoms. Mm-hmm. So that I borrowed a soapbox from Mr. Spencer. I'm going to give it back to him because I actually have my own. Anybody that knows me knows that. Mm-hmm. But I would then wish everybody a reflective Memorial Day and hope that you have a nice weekend. Thank you very much.
Larry, that was really well said. And thank you very much for taking the time because it's so true. This Memorial Day is probably a little bit different than others. And when we memorialize our first responders, our fire, our police, our healthcare workers, but there's also a group of individuals that aren't getting the thank you. So that there are scientists. Our scientists are working round the clock to find vaccines and to do all of that work. And I always think about the scientists out there a bit because they're working round the clock to defeat this deadly virus. So along with all of our first responders, I'd also like to shout out to all the scientists that are working 18-hour days in the labs, isolated, geared up. We don't see them as often. So Larry, thank you very much. It was really well said. I want to just say to everyone, have a safe and wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe, wash your hands, keep them away from your nose and your mouth, and wear your mask when you're out and social distance at all times.
Visit the town's website for information on Memorial Day activities. It's all up there. So
great, excellent.
Great.
Chief, the deputy. Chief.
So in closing, I want to wish everybody a happy and safe holiday. And if you have any COVID questions, you can dial 211. If you have any questions in regards to your workplace, you can call the Massachusetts Attorney General at 617-727-3465. Thank you very much.
Great. Have a nice weekend.